The story of video games is one of imagination, technology, and cultural transformation, beginning with simple experiments on early computers and evolving into one of the most influential industries in modern entertainment. Today, video games are a multi-billion-dollar global phenomenon, played by billions of people across consoles, computers, and mobile devices. But their journey spans decades of innovation, challenges, and creativity. To understand the complete history of video games, we must start from their earliest roots, long before the consoles and high-definition graphics we know today. The origins of video games can be traced back to the 1940s and 1950s, when scientists and engineers working with some of the earliest computers experimented with creating interactive programs. In 1947, Thomas T. Goldsmith Jr. and Cecil Ray Mann patented what is considered the first electronic game device, known as the cathode ray tube amusement device. This rudimentary system allowed players to control a dot on a screen to simulate firing a missile at a target. It was never released commercially, but it set the foundation for the concept of interactive electronic entertainment. By the 1950s, computers were becoming more sophisticated, though still massive and accessible only to scientists and universities. In 1952, Alexander S. Douglas created a game called OXO, a version of tic-tac-toe, on the EDSA-C computer for his PhD thesis at the University of Cambridge. Players could interact with the computer using a rotary dial, and the game displayed results on the computer's cathode ray screen. Though limited, it demonstrated the potential of games as part of computing. Around the same time, William Higginbotham, a physicist at Brookhaven National Laboratory, created Tennis for Two in 1958, which was played on an oscilloscope. This game allowed two players to simulate a ball moving across a net, and it became a hit during laboratory open houses, attracting visitors fascinated by the novelty of interactive screens. The 1960s saw further experimentation with computer-based games. One of the most important milestones was Spacewar, developed in 1962 by Steve Russell and other students at MIT. The game, played on a DEC PDP-1 computer, featured two spaceships engaged in combat while maneuvering around a central star with gravitational pull. Spacewar spread across computer labs in the United States, becoming one of the first widely recognized video games and inspiring future game developers. It established key concepts like real-time interaction, competition, and digital physics simulation that would later define the medium. The 1970s marked the commercial birth of the video game industry. In 1971, Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dabney created Computer Space, the first commercial arcade video game based on Spacewar. While Computer Space struggled due to its complexity, the duo would go on to found Atari, a company that would define the early gaming era. In 1972, Atari released Pong, designed by Alan Alcorn, a simple but addictive game simulating table tennis. Pong became a massive success in arcades, introducing millions of people to video games and kickstarting the arcade revolution. That same year, Magnavox released the Odyssey, the first home video game console, which allowed players to connect to their televisions and play a variety of simple games using plastic overlays to simulate visuals. Though primitive, the Odyssey laid the foundation for the home gaming market. As the 1970s progressed, arcade gaming flourished. Titles like Space Invaders in 1978, developed by Tomohiro Nishikado in Japan, became cultural phenomena, drawing massive crowds and leading to the creation of dedicated arcades filled with game cabinets. Space Invaders also marked the beginning of video game addiction fears, as its popularity was so immense that it reportedly caused a shortage of 100 yen coins in Japan. Other hits like Asteroids and Galaxian followed, each pushing the boundaries of gameplay, graphics, and sound. The 1980s are often referred to as the golden age of arcade games. Classics like Pac-Man, 1980, created by Namco's Toru Iwatani, introduced colorful characters and maze-chasing fun that appealed to a wide audience, including women and children, broadening gaming's reach. Pac-Man's popularity was unmatched, spawning merchandise, cartoons, and even a hit song. In 1981, Nintendo released Donkey Kong, designed by Shigeru Miyamoto, introducing characters like Jumpman, later renamed Mario, who would become the face of Nintendo and one of the most iconic characters in gaming history. Games like Defender, Frogger, and Ms. Pac-Man became staples of arcade culture, cementing video games as a mainstream form of entertainment. The rise of home consoles also accelerated during this period. Atari's VCS, later known as the Atari 2600, released in 1977, became a household phenomenon in the early 1980s, offering interchangeable cartridges so players could enjoy multiple games on one system. Popular titles like Pitfall and home versions of arcade hits drove massive sales, making the Atari 2600 the defining console of its time. Personal computers like the Apple II and Commodore 64 also became platforms for innovative games, enabling independent developers to create and distribute titles, laying the groundwork for the diversity of the industry. However, the industry faced a major crisis in 1983, known as the video game crash. Oversaturation of the market with poor quality games, lack of consumer trust, and competition from personal computers led to a collapse in video game sales, particularly in North America. Infamous titles like E.T., The Extraterrestrial, and poorly made Atari 2600 ports damaged the industry's reputation. Many believed video games were a passing fad destined to fade away. The revival came from Japan, led by Nintendo. In 1985, Nintendo released the Nintendo Entertainment System, NES, in North America, revitalizing the console market. The NES featured iconic games like Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, and Metroid, which redefined gameplay, storytelling, and design. Nintendo implemented strict quality control measures, ensuring consumers regained trust in video games. Meanwhile, Sega entered the market with its Master System, sparking the first of many console wars. The late 1980s and early 1990s saw the rise of 16-bit consoles, with Nintendo's Super Nintendo Entertainment System, SNES, and Sega's Genesis or Mega Drive. These systems delivered improved graphics, sound, and gameplay, leading to legendary franchises like Sonic the Hedgehog, Final Fantasy, Street Fighter II, and The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past. Arcades continued to thrive with fighting games like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter II, while home consoles pushed cinematic experiences and multiplayer fun. The 1990s also marked the beginning of 3D gaming. Sony entered the market with the PlayStation in 1994, focusing on CD-based media, which allowed for larger and more complex games. Titles like Final Fantasy VII, Metal Gear Solid, and Gran Turismo showcased the potential of the PlayStation, making it a massive success. Nintendo responded with the Nintendo 64, delivering groundbreaking 3D experiences like Super Mario 64 and The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, both hailed as some of the greatest games ever made. Sega introduced the Saturn and later the Dreamcast, with the latter being ahead of its time in online gaming, though ultimately unable to compete with Sony's dominance. By the 2000s, video games had become mainstream entertainment, on par with movies and music. The PlayStation 2, released in 2000, became the best-selling console of all time, offering an enormous library of games. Microsoft entered the industry with the Xbox, introducing online gaming with Xbox Live, which revolutionized multiplayer experiences. Titles like Halo became cultural touchstones, defining the era of first-person shooters. Nintendo innovated with the Wii in 2006, introducing motion controls and appealing to casual gamers and families, achieving massive success. The 2010s marked the era of high-definition gaming, online distribution, and the rise of mobile gaming. Sony's PlayStation 4 and Microsoft's Xbox One competed for graphical power and exclusive titles, while Nintendo's Switch blended handheld and home console gaming into one device. Mobile gaming exploded with smartphones, bringing titles like Angry Birds, Clash of Clans, and Pokémon Go to billions of players worldwide. Indie developers also thrived, with digital platforms allowing small studios to release creative, experimental games like Minecraft, Undertale, and Celeste. Esports emerged as a major phenomenon, turning competitive gaming into a spectator sport with millions of viewers and professional players. Today, video games are an essential part of global culture, with revenues surpassing those of the film and music industries combined. Games are not only entertainment, but also tools for education, social interaction, and artistic expression. Virtual reality, VR, and augmented reality, AR, are pushing boundaries, while cloud gaming services promise to make high-quality games accessible without the need for powerful hardware. Video games have evolved from simple dots on a screen to immersive worlds that connect people across the globe, shaping identities, communities, and even economies. The history of video games is a testament to human creativity, technological progress, and the universal desire for play. From Pong to photorealistic open worlds, from arcades to VR headsets, video games have continuously reinvented themselves while inspiring generations of players and creators. The story is far from over, as gaming continues to evolve into new dimensions. But its history shows us how a simple ID interactive fun grew into one of the most powerful cultural forces in the modern world.